Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Okay, so let's look at the first two categories. So he says, as for the basic form which has three roots, al-thulathi al-mujarrad, if the past tense, the madi, right, al-fi'l al-madi, so the past tense, is on the pattern of fa'ala, with a fatha on the ayn, its present tense, the mudari', is yaf'ulu or yaf'ilu with a dhamma or a kasra on the ayn. So if the past tense is fa'ala, if it's got a dhamma on the present tense, it's form 1. Fa'ala is the first category. Fa'ala yaf'ulu. If you're going to put a kasra on it, it becomes fa'ala yaf'ilu. Yeah? So an example of each is nasara yansuru and daraba yadribu. It'd be good to memorize these examples, right? Nasara means to help, so he helped, he is helping. Nasara yansuru. Daraba means he hit, yadribu, he is hitting, right? So these are form 1 and 2. And there are certain other details which we won't go into here, but suffice it to say that each of these forms each of these forms has particular qualities. For example, the first category usually has a meaning of the action being done on something else, on another object. So nasara Zaydun Amran, Zayd helped Amr, for example. And daraba yadribu is also the same. So these are the first two categories, right? Fathu dhammin, fathu kasrin, right? And then we have the third category. So this is a very prominent category and it's used a lot. So the first three are used more than any of the others. So he says this comes on the pattern of yaf'alu, right? So fathatani, so fathu dhammin, fathu kasrin, fathatani, right? I hope by the end of the lesson we'll have all memorized this poem. Fathu dhammin, fathu kasrin, fathatani, kasru fathin, dhammu dhammin, kasratani. Okay, so alhamdulillah, that's one of the favors the ulama did to us. They versified a lot of knowledge, and it's a lot easier to learn something in verse than it is to learn it as prose. And if you just learn these two lines, you've got these 6 categories. So category 3, he says, this comes on the pattern of yaf'alu. So fa'ala yaf'alu, 2 fathas with a fatha on the ayn in the middle, right? I mean the middle letter of the verb, or it's okay on the middle letter, middle letter, right? Now with category 3, there's an additional condition, which is that the middle and the last letter, or the middle or the last letter, must be one of the letters of the throat. So if you study tajweed, you know that there are 6 letters which are generated in the throat. They start with the voice box and then they rise. There are 6 of them, and the origin starts with the voice box and it rises. So so what are these letters? So the first one, right, is the hamza. So which basically how it works, if you imagine your voice box to be a circle, and there are 2 membranes within it which join together, right? When they join together, no sound occurs. So it's so if you just imagine just closing up your voice box, so no air can come out and nothing, like so if you close it like that, that's when the voice box is closed. A slight movement of it allows a sound to come out. That's the hamza, right, from the vocal cords. And then you can make a sound by vibrating your vocal cords. This is a little bit harder to get, but it's the letter ha, right? A lot of people make a mistake, especially when they start learning tajweed. They get confused, and they mix between the ha and the ha a lot. So the ha is literally a vibration of the vocal cords. Ah, ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. Ihdi, right? That's all it is. It's a vibration of the vocal cords. Ah, it's actually quite therapeutic. Ah, eh, oh, right? So that's the first two Hamza letters. Ah, ha. Then you have the Ain and the Ha. So how are these two letters produced? So the Ain is, if you imagine the back of your throat, where the back of your tongue is, just make any sound. So after you've made that sound, what we're going to do is we're going to push the back of our tongue back to block off any sound, right? So so we're going to block off any sound and any air that's coming out. So it's been pushed back. So the Ain, what happens is, when now that you've got it blocked, you're going to move your tongue away, so it's not blocking it anymore, but ever so slightly. You'll start making a croaking noise. So and at that point you hold it. Right? That's the Ain letter. Yeah. Ala. Right? That's the Ain letter. And so this is made by just allowing the air to exit. The Ha is very similar. You're going to put your tongue in the same spot, except you force the air through. Ha. Alhamdulillahi. Alhamdu. Yeah. Ha. Hi. Hu. Ar-Rahman. Right? So that's with the Ha. The Ghain and the Kha are higher now. Right? So you're going to lift the back of your tongue, take it up to the palate. Kha. Gha. Kha. Gha is just made by just keeping the tongue there. The Kha is by pushing. Kha. And the Gha is just by vibrating. Gha. Yeah. Ghalib. Right? Khaliq. Right? That's how it's done. So these are, this is a tangent tajweed lesson, but so these are the 6 letters of the throat. So now if we have these 6 letters of the throat, if we have one of these letters as the Ain or the Lam letter, and the category is fa'ala yaf'alu, right? It's category 3 automatically. Now it doesn't mean that every word which has a throat letter as the Ain and the Lam is of category 3, because it's not the case, right? You can have a word on in category 1 or 2, and they're both and it could have a throat letter, but it's not category 3, right? So in order for it to be category 3, there has to be a fatha on the Ain letter in the past and the present, and the Ain and the Lam have to be one of the throat letters. One of them has to be a throat letter. So the examples the author gives us: Sa'ala yas'alu, right? Sa'ala, so Hamza is a throat letter. Yas'alu. Mana'a, Ain, throat letter. Yamna'u. Aba ya'ba. Great. The final one is an exception. So what does it mean that it's an exception? What's intended here is that basically the ulama derived these rules from the regular usage of the Arabs. So how Arabs spoke, how it's used in the Quran, the Sunnah, and in poetry, how Arabic is used, they deduced these rules from there. So many a time what they found is the Arabs spoke in a particular way, so they deduced from that method rules, right? Which is basically what these are, right? Principles. So sometimes after deducing a principle, they found that some of the Arabs might have used the word in a way which contradicts the principle. So the important point is that the Arabs spoke it this way, right? They said it this way, and the principle is derived, is secondary. So in this situation, they say what they would do is they would allow this usage, if it was a very common usage, from one of the original Arabs, they would allow the usage. They said this is perfectly fine, but it's shadh, meaning it's an exception from our principle that we've derived from the general body of the scholars of Arabic. So here in this situation, it would aba ya'ba, right? Some of the scholars said that if you were to follow its actual principle, it should be on fathu kasrin, fa'ala yaf'ilu, right? It should have been aba ya'bi, right? But because the Quran, and there's reasons for that, but because it's like this in the Quran and in the speech of Arabs, we're going to keep it as aba ya'ba, right? So it's of the third category. So fathu dhammin فعل يفعل فتح كسر فعل يفعل فتحتان فعل يفعل. So فعل يفعل, I made a mistake. So the first one فعل يفعل, فعل يفعل, and فعل يفعل, on the condition that the ayn or the lam letter has hamza, ha, ayn, ha, ghain, kha, one of the 6 throat letters. And then we come to the fourth category. So this is represented in our verse with kasru fathin, right? So there's a kasra on the past tense and a fatha on the present. So it says if the past tense, the madi, is on the pattern of fa'ila, there's a kasra on the ayn. Its present tense is, the mudari is yaf'alu. So mudari, the present tense, is yaf'alu. Kasru fathin, kasra and then a fatha, with a fatha on the ayn, right? And so alima ya'lamu, right? So he's given this. And then he says, except for that which is an exception, which is hasiba yahsibu, and it can also be hasiba yahsabu, right? So why is this the exception? Well, this, as I mentioned, is actually of the 6th category. So the 6th category, there are about 12 or so verbs which go as fa'ila yaf'ilu. Fa'ila yaf'ilu, right? And then there are another 12 or 13 which can be read both ways. So hasiba is of these. Hasiba yahsibu, hasiba yahsabu, right? So we'll leave this with the exception. We'll put this in the 6th category. But besides this is alima ya'lamu, right? This is normally used to express faults and defects. Awira, like someone's eye is bulging, for example, and so faults and defects, or qualities of beauty. You could say, for example, hawira. Hawira is if you heard the term huri'in, right, the maidens of paradise. Hur is the plural of the word hawra, which is a lady with clear, light skin, which is extremely clear, right? Like there's no defects on the skin. And aina, so ain is plural of aina, which is a lady with wide eyes, big beautiful wide eyes. So hawira, you'd say that someone's skin is beautiful and glistening and with no defects, and it's light in color. So that's the 4th category. And then the 5th category is used to represent qualities that are permanent. Stuff you can't do, stuff that is intrinsic to you, right? So you said such as you'd say da'ufa Zayd, someone he's just always weak, right? For example, and there's many. The main example that he's given here is hasuna, right? He's handsome, or he's good looking, and this is something permanent, long term, right? So he says the 5th category, if its madi is on the pattern of fa'ula, yeah, with a dhamma on the ayn, then its mudari is also yaf'ulu. So it's our 5th category is dhammu dhammin. So in our poem, what is it? Fathu kasrin, fathu dhammin, fathatani, kasru fathin, dhammu dhammin, kasratani. So this is dhammu dhammin. There's a dhamma on the past and there's dhamma on the present, and that's basically it. So this is the fifth category, right? And beyond this, we have the final and the sixth category, which, like I said, is it's basically words which can fit on both alima ya'lamu or hasiba yahsibu and hasiba yahsabu. So the past tense has a kasra and the present tense has a kasra for the sixth category, but there are a number of words which pertain to it which can have a fatha as well, right? And what we'll do is we'll stick to this. I think this is sufficient for this level. And the reason why I mentioned the six, because in order to be complete, because most of the other books mention six categories. So the author here, he's just trying to be brief and not bombard us with too much information. So we're going to stick to roughly the level that he's teaching us at. And so we'll stick to this. We'll stick to the five categories. So so if you see that the six categories, if you pick up a book on Sarf and you see that the author's talking about six categories, there's no need to get worried. So we'll end it here, inshallah ta'ala. And next we'll look at الرباعي المجرد, inshallah ta'ala. Okay. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.